Are the Springboks looking bearish, a once mighty team suddenly in decline? And are the All Blacks looking bullish, a young team finally getting their footing under coach Razor Robertson? Well, these are fair questions to ask outside the New York Stock Exchange. However, if you follow this channel, you know that it's simply not that simple. In this video, I'm going to break down both team sheets, analyze what the hell Rassie Rasmus was thinking naming his team so early, and let you know who I think is going to win the game in Wellington. Well, firstly, let's talk about Rassie. Why on earth would you name your team early? Seemingly, it is handing all the cards to the opposition. The All Blacks used to name their team on a Tuesday. They stopped doing it because they felt that it was unfairly benefiting their opponents. Now they name their team on a Thursday. I think Rassie did it to get ahead of the news cycle, to start off the week decisively, and to get the major headlines out of the way. It also invites a little bit of doubt into the mind of the opponents. Is this really the team Rassie's going to go with? Are there going to be some mystery ailments that crop up later in the week? I tend to think this is the team that's going to run out there. And if you look at the front row, there aren't really any surprises. These guys have done the business for South Africa. They are rock solid. They are experienced. They are good to go. A major casualty, though, in the second row. Etzebeth has been cut, and he is not even on the bench. Even though his offloading game has been good, clearly there have been too many errors in the game of this legendary South African, the most capped Springbok ever. You look at Reinach, you look at Ludiaga, you have to say those are younger, more mobile locks. And by getting rid of Etzebeth, you also bring Snyman onto the bench. And frankly, he should have been there at Eden Park against the All Blacks. Nothing against Ethan Hooker. I just feel that you needed another gnarly forward instead of an outside back on the bench. And looking back on the game, I suspect that Rassie would feel the same way, but he's rectified that mistake this week. So I'm expecting a lot more physical impact off the bench just with that one addition alone. I also much prefer the look of the South African loose forwards this week. Yes, Jasper has been out for a long time, but he really is the first choice number 8 for these Oaks. So he allows Kolisi to go back to his preferred position of number 6. Of course, Jesse Kriel has been cut, so he is not captaining the team. And let's be honest, Kolisi is the spiritual leader of the Springboks, back in his natural position. That can only bolster the team. Peter Steph-Toy is simply too good to cut, even if Rassie is showing signs that he is moving forward with the youth and possibly going to axe some veterans. So a much better looking forward pack there. And look, Grant Williams, who was brilliant with his box kicking, he's gone to the bench. Clearly, Kobus Reinach created havoc when he came on. He sniped. He split the All Blacks defense in two on multiple occasions. He's starting at 9, and we need a little bit more creativity out of the South African backs. Clearly, Pollard, godlike goal kicker as he is, was not the man to unleash the Springbok backline. He is a major casualty. He's not even on the bench. Libbok comes back in on the bench. What this signals is that Rassie is going back and forth with his strategy. Instead of narrowing the game plan, kicking, and crushing the opposition at the set piece, he wants to score more points. Now, he has stated many times he thinks that you need 25 points in order to be competitive or beat the All Blacks. They only hit 17 on the weekend. Rassie needs more output from his backline. So Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu could be the youngster to unlock that backline. Libbok certainly can if he keeps his error count under control. But it's in the midfield that Rassie has really swung the axe. Gone are Damian Dialende and Jesse Kriel, that much-capped, much-experienced World Cup-winning duo. Instead, you have Kane and Moodie, who is very much the future, who hits like a ton of bricks on defense, as Beauden Barrett could tell you. And you also have Damian Willemse out there at 12. So you sort of have two playmakers there at 10 and 12, which I like. You swap out the aging Willie LaRue at the back. You put Apalele Fassi in, who is an excitement machine, even though he looked a bit predictable on attack against the Australians. And suddenly you have a team that you think can score more tries. But are they going to benefit from chopping and changing their strategy so much? It seems that Rassie went all in on percentage play, back to basics rugby. It did the job in Cape Town. Now he's gone back to the philosophy he tried to employ in Johannesburg against the Aussies, and we know how well that went. On the other hand, I'm very excited to see young Ethan Hooker get a start. Speaking of defense, this guy absolutely loves to defend. He is one of the hardest hitting backs in all of South Africa. He is going to make life really tough for the New Zealand back three, because you can be sure he's going to chase every single kick, and he's going to put some big hits on the wingers and midfielders that come down his channel. So overall, there's risk-reward. This is a high-risk team, but something tells me that after being embarrassed at Eden Park, not getting that dub that they so badly wanted, that they stated so publicly they wanted, I just think there's going to be a South African snapback, and it's really going to be tough for the All Blacks to lift themselves up to that mental pinnacle they were on last week at Eden Park. It was a do-or-die game. Their backs were against the wall. Advantage South Africa when it comes to the psychology of this match. Factor in the fact that the All Blacks have not beaten them 2 out of 3 times in Wellington recently. There is a strong argument to make that South Africa should be pretty heavy favorites going into this game. Now, today is September 11th in New York, so I wanted to make sure I came down to ground zero, paid my respects to the fallen, and I just want to take a moment in this video to acknowledge this day, which has had such an impact on all of us around the world, but obviously, especially here in the States and in New York City, one thing is for sure, we will never forget this day. Alright guys, back to the rugby. Razor has just dropped what I would call a very exciting All Blacks team. Take a look at that front row. Tyrell Lomax is back. I told you, do not think that the old firm of Ethan de Groot and Tyrell Lomax are done this year. They are back in business. That is great to see. Now, Tyrell Lomax was part of that scrum, which went backwards at a rate of knots. In fact, it may have been him that lost his footing, but as Jason Ryan said pretty plainly this week, the All Blacks forward coach, he put it this way, he said, that's a never again moment. And I suspect he might just be right there. If anything, that little humiliation dose might be a good thing for getting Tyrell Lomax up to speed. And now we have the answer. The All Blacks back row is locked. It is loaded. You can put it in cement for the rest of the year as long as these guys are fit. Simon Parker at 6 just brings so much physicality and destructiveness with his ball carrying and defense. He has to be there at 6. Beautifully balances out that back row with Ardie Savea. The pilferer in chief at 7. And of course, the mobility of Wallace Sititi. Those fast feet, those offloads, just what we need. Lets you keep Tupou Vai there at lock, where clearly he is shining. And of course, you know, Scott Barrett, I didn't really give him enough of a shout out on the weekend, but he had one hell of a game against the Springboks. Now, finally, some halfback relief comes in. Noah Hotham has been picked, and why not? Look, Finlay Christie was down the depth chart below Noah Hotham, so with Hotham fit and available, I think it makes sense to put him out there. I would even say it's less risky starting him, in the sense that you can pull him off at halftime for sure. Whereas if you have him on the bench and Finlay Christie were to, you know, pick up an injury in the second minute, you know, is Hotham ready to play close to 80 minutes? I think this is actually a better way to manage his minutes. Beauden Barrett's going to be out there at 10. And who is wearing 11? Leroy Carter. I am stoked to see this. Lots of rumblings during the week. The fastest man in New Zealand rugby. This 7 specialist is so good on both sides of the ball. He richly deserves his opportunity. If you watch Super Rugby this year, you would know that to be true. He was absolutely one of the most outstanding form wingers. Rico Ioane has not set the world on fire at wing this year, to say the least. He had some brilliant defensive efforts at Eden Park. Cannot question his defensive technique or his heart. But it does feel like the right time to try something different here. And of course, with Imoni Narawa injured, Sever Reece out of favour, back to the NPC, we're just going to keep Will Jordan on the right wing and have Damien McKenzie starting at 15, which, you know, some would say is the best possible attacking formation anyway. Goes back to that dual playmaker concept that we're all sick of hearing about, but quite frankly, it works. And I like the look of that backline. Sticking with what they know in midfield, and why not? I mean, Billy Proctor found more space, was very well organised defensively on the weekend, so that midfield backs up. No Lester Fainga'anuku on the bench, but there is room for Ruben Love playing at home in Wellington. He richly deserves this opportunity. I think that is absolutely fantastic. Just a couple of other observations about the impact players. You've got Brodie McAlister backing up Samisoni Takiaho. That had to be expected. George Bell is in the squad, but you know, he is further down the depth chart. And interestingly, Duplessis Kirifi has been retained, which I think is the right way to go. He can really create some havoc at the breakdown coming off the bench. Much better choice than Samipeni Finau, who's out of favour. And we're going to see if Fabian Holland can yet be an impactful bench player. He's looked better as a starter so far, but maybe he can provide some real sting when he comes off the bench this weekend. That will be his assignment. So who do I think is going to win? Whew. Well, I'm going to hedge my bets here. I'm going to pick the All Blacks. However, I think South Africa are the favourites for all the reasons I mentioned earlier. Tell me what you think. Sound off in the comments. And guys, I'll be back on the weekend to break down this monumental game. I'm really not comfortable calling New Zealand #1 in the world with a bullet unless they can put the Boks away 2 times in a row. That would really get the job done. This game is every bit as important. South Africa have so much to play for. They have the mental edge. New Zealand needs to climb back to the summit again this weekend psychologically, get back to that dark place. Hopefully the words of Richie McCaw in camp this week will have helped. Good luck to South Africa. Go the All Blacks. Send this video to someone who loves rugby, and I'll be back to chat about the game with you guys soon. Take it easy. Bye for now.